Hello and welcome to another Wards Editorial Roundtable. We are talking about the Wards 10 Best Engines and Propulsion Systems list. For 25 years it was just 10 best engines, but we've got hybrids, we've got battery electrics, we've got hydrogen-powered fuel cells. So we want to recognize all those systems. So now it's official going forward. We've got a longer name, but the competition remains the same as it's always been, and that is test driving cars in Metro Detroit in the months of October and November. With the Wards editors, there are 8 of us in Detroit who are doing the testing. And right now we're going to talk about the 10 winners. And I have with me my esteemed colleagues, Drew Winter, James Amond, and Bob Gritzinger. Of course, there are 8 of us. We've got 4 here. And we're going to be discussing the whole field. This year we had 26 powertrains that we evaluated, slightly smaller than we've had in past years. Usually we have a little more than 30, but still a great field of entries. And we're gonna go right into the list now in alphabetical order because number 1 is the same as number 10 in our book. The BMW M340i 3-liter B58 turbocharged inline-six cylinder. The Mercedes-Benz GLE 450 3-liter turbocharged inline-six. The FCA Ram 1500 3.6-liter Pentastar V6 e-torque. The Ford Mustang 2.3-liter high-performance EcoBoost 4-cylinder engine. The General Motors Chevy Corvette Stingray LT2 6.2-liter V8 engine. The GMC Sierra 1500 LM2 engine, the 3-liter Duramax diesel inline-six cylinder. The Honda Accord Hybrid, the 2-liter Atkinson 4-cylinder that was also a winner last year. The Hyundai Sonata 1.6-liter turbocharged direct injection engine, 4-cylinder. The Hyundai Kona EV. And finally, the Nissan Altima 2-liter VC turbo 4-cylinder engine. So let's talk. First on the list was BMW, again alphabetically. This engine, this is the B58 3-liter inline-six, and BMW has a long history of producing excellent inline-six, naturally aspirated, and then came the turbo engines. So since 2007, BMW now has 10 inline-six turbos on our list. This is the 10th. Last year's winner was 335 horsepower BMW X5, and now that engine has been ramped up to 382. So thank you, Munich, for an extra 47 horsepower, 369 pound-feet of torque. And this is in the M340i, so smaller car than the X5 with a whole lot more power and torque. So, Bob, how did you like that one?
Great fun. I mean, these BMW people have established kind of the world-class inline-six engine. I mean, look no further than Toyota when they needed an inline-six for the Supra to maintain that heritage of an inline-six cylinder engine in that vehicle. They didn't go out and design it themselves. They looked around the world and said, BMW already makes this engine. Right. Let's just work with them.
And isn't it curious that BMW, with this 382 horsepower version, they keep that to themselves.
Oh, yeah.
Well, the Supra deals
for the
with
Z4,
less.
yeah.
330 or 340. It's the lower output. Still a great engine.
Yeah, and it works in that application. But in this case, we're talking about, a sports sedan that just absolutely kills it.
Yeah, it blisters. It's really big power throughout the rev band, really enjoyable, and you've got it never gasps for breath, and with I think 369 pound-foot of torque, it really pulls.
And you just can't argue with the the inline architecture, which gives you such a smooth, great NVH and smoothness all throughout the rev range.
Yeah, and the technology that they baked into this engine, I mean, keep in mind, we're seeing development cycles for engines moving much more rapidly than in the past. We'd see the same engine that would stay in the market as is for several years, right? Well, here now in this case, this engine that was fresh last year, that was a winner last year, now gets split cooling circuits, one for the intercooler and one for the engine, a one-piece timing chain that reduces friction over the old two-piece timing chain, a turbo impeller that is 25% lighter for faster response. The twin scroll turbocharger overall is new, and it's integrated into the exhaust manifold for faster response again. So I mean, you think of the timing, that the amount of engineering that goes into an engine once it's launched, and now we're already moving on to the next generation that quickly.
And just to summarize, if I could borrow James's notes from our judge's notes, he said in his notes, I think the Genesis G60 pissed someone off in Munich, and they felt that the sports sedan world needed to be set back on its axis.
Well said, James.
Oh, thank you.
But it's not all about power. It's also, in the case of BMW, they have this, efficient dynamics where they want to be also cognizant of fuel efficiency.
economy,
So we were getting 25 miles per gallon in a vehicle, and we were thrashing it pretty hard, which is pretty remarkable.
And EPA estimated as 30 highway, so, but at the same time, 4.4 seconds, 0 to 60.
Yeah.
Thank you, BMW.
Nothing wrong with that. So let's move on now to the Ram 1500. This would be considered a return winner. So this is the 3.6-liter Pentastar V6 that is also paired with a 48-volt electrical system that makes for really smooth stop-start and will allow for the engine to stay shut off much longer. So suddenly your fuel economy goes up. And in the case of our testing, we were getting low to mid 20s in a full-size pickup truck. Nothing wrong with that. Very respectable. 305 horsepower, 269 pound-feet of torque. Runs on regular unleaded as well. So 48 volt. Who wants to talk about 48 volt?
Well, I think that the Pentastar is a good example of how electrification is playing this new role in just all sorts of vehicles. And it, on the surface, it looks like it's a fairly minor role, but it contributes a lot in terms of the overall engine smoothness and the operation. And we see some other, I think there's launch benefits you get with that, and it sort of fills in holes in the torque. But it's a subtle but very key evolution of a truck engine or a V6 engine, and we're starting to see 48 volt now really starting to have impact on a lot of engines we're testing now.
Yeah, and at this time of really wanting the best fuel efficiency, we're going to have some hybrid full-size trucks coming in the market in the future. And what are those going to cost? Well, we know what this 48-volt Ram costs, and the base price on our vehicle was just over $43,000, which when you think of all the people who are out there easily spending 50, 60 grand on a full-size pickup truck, that's a pretty good deal for a very capable truck that is also getting really good fuel efficiency.
Yeah, it's a smart application by the folks at FCA too. They've got some good margins on the Ram, so it makes it an attractive proposition for them. And what I really like, and this is one of two 48-volt systems that we're going to talk about, we'll probably repeat ourselves on the other one, but the stop-start system, it really makes it almost imperceptible when the engine's coming on and coming off, and I think that really addresses a concern in the marketplace where people really don't like, they're fearful that it's not going to come on when they leave the stop sign or something like that. So this smooths that out. You don't really know it's there.
Yeah, and it's in addition to that smoothing, it's also helping smooth the shift points. So it really helps the overall sort of seamless operation of the powertrain. It's a really simple 48-volt system, and I believe on the V6 it's standard. So it's also available on the Hemi, but
and it's also available with the 2-liter four-cylinder in the Jeep Wrangler, which clearly FCA, that's their big fuel efficiency play. Put it in very high volume in the very high volume segment.
And these belt systems rather than something that's integrated into the transmission at this point, at least for FCA.
Yeah. So let's move on to the Ford Mustang. We had two Mustangs that were in the hunt, And of course, the 5-liter Bullet, which was a winner last year, was very, very close to making the list. We actually did ponder putting 2 Mustangs on the list.
Can we have them both? Can we have them both?
But the 5-liter has been well recognized on our list, and this year we wanted to recognize the 2.3-liter high-performance EcoBoost. Now, as you know, the Mustang already is available with the lower output 2.3-liter EcoBoost, and if you look at the WardsAuto if you look at the Wards Intelligence data, you will find that 54% of Mustangs are selling with 4-cylinder EcoBoost engines, which is pretty remarkable, outselling the V8. But now comes along this 2.3-liter high-performance version, which is carried over from the Ford Focus RS, which was a winner a couple years ago on our list. And in this case now, 330 horsepower, 350 pound-feet of torque, carrying over a lot of the goodness, a lot of the things that we really loved about the Ford Focus RS, yet now in a Mustang. And Drew and I were talking not long ago about the experience of driving the vehicle, and it's kind of like being in a rally car. It's like they've turned the Mustang in this particular application into a rally car. Really enjoyable.
It really does feel different, and we're always talking about does the engine or the propulsion system, does it really help sell the car? And I know we talked about how certainly the V8 and the Bullet and previous versions that's always helped sell Mustangs, and this car I was really surprised because this engine in its own way sells a car in a different way, but you get in and man, the power and the sounds and it's all different. I mean, it almost feels like it's like the millennial version of the Mustang because it's different, but lots of fun and it feels more. I mean, it's not you don't get from the suspension or anything else. You don't get that. The old sort of muscle car feeling that you get from the Mustang. This is all tied down like a rally car, and the engine really fits that persona.
And a twin-scroll turbocharger to really get you the juice you need. Curb weight of 3,600 pounds.
Yeah.
Really attractive with a package like this. And to your point about millennial shoppers, $31,000 base price for this vehicle. Saving quite a bit of money below the V8, and 31 grand, last I checked, is well below the average price of a vehicle in the United States today, right? Based on the transaction prices. Just all sorts of fun.
A lot less weight on the nose compared to a V8, and so this makes the car feel very nimble when you're canyon carving, or and especially when you're driving it with the 6-speed manual transmission. Fantastic handling, and it just really sounds great when you keep that engine on boil. You run that at 4,000 RPM, you would almost think there's a V8 under the hood.
And in this case, we had the 10-speed automatic,
right?
Which allows for all sorts. Well, you can switch your modes also with the with the manual transmission, but I was enjoying the different aural experiences, the sounds that because you can switch to a quiet mode if you want. You can make it louder. You can make
Sport
quiet,
Plus it.
Sport Plus, track, drag strip setting, all those different settings for however you want to tailor your experience.
But using those paddle shifters and keeping the revs up makes it just does it all for it.
And the instant downshifts and everything else. It's
Yeah. So let's move on to the GMC Sierra 1500. This is a 3-liter diesel inline-six. Yes, inline-six. And what's significant here is, for the first time in our competition, we had light-duty 3-liter diesel engines from all 3 manufacturers in the full-size truck market. Ford was first a couple of years ago with their 3-liter. Actually, I should say Ram was earlier, but then Ford came along and they made our list. The Ram had made our list many years ago, and now Ram has come with an updated version of the 3-liter. But the last one to come into the market was this GM 3-liter, which is in both the Chevy Silverado and the GMC Sierra, the full-size trucks. And for me, I enjoyed driving all three of them. I think they're very capable engines. I thought the Ram was a bit louder than the others, but the Ram also has the highest towing capacity. So, just a lot of trade-offs as you're comparing these three diesels head to head. But for me, the GM 3-liter was head and shoulders better in terms of observed fuel economy. Getting 25 miles per gallon in a full-size pickup truck is not an easy thing to do. And very quiet, very quiet, not the diesels that you remembered from long ago. And interesting, though, I talked about the tow rating for the Ram. In the case of the Chevy and the Sierra, the tow rating is 9,300 pounds, which is lower than the other two, but still 9,300 pounds is a whole lot of mass to be hauling around. So I kind of think that GM hit the nail on the head when they picked, okay, let's go for fuel efficiency and a slightly lower tow rating, because I think there are buyers who want the fuel efficiency more than the higher tow number.
Yeah, especially in the light duty segment, right? But as you mentioned, inline-six, inherently balanced, great NVH. Interesting thing, you get a lot of torque early on this puppy, like 95% of it at 1,250. That's great for getting off the line when you are towing and hauling. And I had the opportunity to take this on an off-road course during the National Drive, and having all that torque available so early is also really great when you're creeping around rocks and over logs and things like that.
Yep, and also in terms of the fuel efficiency, the 33 mile per gallon EPA number is certainly the highest number that's out there among the light duty diesels.
And that's 460 pound-foot of torque, right? That you're getting at, 95% of that is 1250.
Which is the same as the 6.2 V8, I think, in the full-size trucks.
Right there, yeah.
I mean, a lot of us saw 25 mpg around town, but at least one of our testers recorded 29.9. So.
Out on the highway, perhaps?
The vehicle certainly delivers as advertised.
Yeah. So the pricing on this, you are going to pay more for a diesel engine. In this case, the premium is $2,495 over the 5.3 liter V8. You're going to pay similar numbers whether you're shopping Ford, GM, or Chrysler, or Ram. So it'd be nice to see those premiums come down a little bit, because that's it's still a fair amount of money, especially over the V8. If it was kind of in line with the V8, that'd be one thing. But so let's move on to another General Motors engine. We had two automakers that won 2 trophies this year. General Motors was one of them, and the other one is the GM Chevy Corvette Stingray. The LT2 engine, which is the 6.2 liter V8, overhead valve push rod, of course, paired with an 8-speed DCT. This is a mid-engine application, and first time any of us have driven Corvette with the engine behind us, and what a thrill it was. My key takeaway of the whole experience was how quiet it was. I was expecting this roaring sensation. And I know I have bad ears, but I was expecting this roaring sensation in the cabin, and it was very tame. I mean, it was quick, very quick, 2.9 seconds, 0 to 60, yet quiet.
Yeah, I had a chance to, under supervision, put it into launch mode, and yeah, it's quiet, and I mean, it's a great daily driver and really quiet and civilized, but once you get in, start driving it fast, it makes a sort of just a heavenly roar.
Yeah, it really does.
But it really sounds good, and it's
lots of power, and the power is a real linear delivery to it, so you can really drive this thing confidently. And I thought it was interesting, a couple things. With the mid-engine placement, they moved the dry sump into the front corner of it, and that allows them to put the engine an inch lower. So that's going to improve your center of gravity. But that dry sump is smaller, but it moves more oil through the engine.
Better lube.
Yeah, and then they also, one other thing they did was the intake manifold. They had to make some. They had to scrunch it down to fit it under the hood of the C7 in previous generations, so you could see over, right? And that compromised them in a number of ways. But now they're able to make that plenum a lot larger, so they're getting a lot more. They're getting like 3% more peak power and torque with that.
Yeah. And go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, it's just a jewel of a small block application. I mean, this is, and you can see it. It's right there in view. You hear it. It's just fantastic.
And we've had a whole lot of small blocks on our list over the years. This one is an extension of the engine that made our list last year in the full-size pickup trucks. And that is, again, a 6.2 liter overhead valve V8 that had the dynamic fuel management system, the 17-mode cylinder deactivation, which
But
is
in
very
this case, though,
sophisticated. In this case, it does have AFM, which is active fuel management, which shuts down 4 cylinders at a time, but also really helping with the fuel efficiency. I don't recall what kind of numbers we got. We had special arrangements to drive the Corvette, and I'm not sure what kind of numbers we were.
I can tell you one number I got.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No police listening.
Yeah.
111.
111. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Well, I beat that, but
And it was smooth all the way.
yeah.
That was a 45 to 111 mile per hour boost, and
Yeah. So that's like half speed in that car, though.
yeah.
0 to 60 in 3 seconds is what the
2.9.
is 2.9.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
and 2 different horsepower and torque numbers, 490 horsepower or 495 if you spring for the Z51 performance package, 465 pound-feet of torque or 470 with the performance exhaust. Built in Tonawanda, New York.
I'm just glancing at a couple of numbers. We hit 19, 20 in that area just in our short drives
in the
at 20
Corvette?
miles per gallon.
I wasn't really paying attention to fuel efficiency for some reason.
Which was,
I think it's-
which was fine.
It's academic in this application.
But know that if you own a Corvette, it is one of the more fuel efficient vehicles, especially in the sports car realm.
Weighing in at 3,300 pounds.
Right. Yeah.
And we've got a DCT on this baby.
Nice
so great. I mean, just the shifts are just so quick on that thing.
Oh, and also we're missing a key point, the pricing. I mean, the fact that this car comes in under our $65,000 price cap, well under it, with a base price of $59,995.
As tested too. We tested the
As tested.
59.
I'm sure people are going to be paying more with extra.
Carbon fiber everywhere, and yeah.
Drew, did you have something?
No, well, I was just going to point out, too, that there's a lot of criticisms about small blocks, as you know, they're old architecture and push rods and whatnot, but the brilliant part of the small block is it's such a space-efficient engine, and that's partially how it enabled this application. Sure. It's not tall. It doesn't have the valves sitting on top that makes it tall, and it's an incredible long-lasting architecture because of all the positive things it offers.
Yep. Let's move on to the Honda Accord Hybrid. This is a 2-liter Atkinson cycle, dual overhead cam, iVTEC engine. I love this application. This is a return winner, so this was on our list last year. It comes back in the same exact specification, a 3rd generation 2-motor hybrid system, and has active noise canceling in the cabin just to make it sound even quieter. Lithium-ion battery, 47 miles per gallon city and highway. Our testing was 38 miles per gallon. Impressive for a large sedan. I mean, I would call the Accord now a large sedan. Very, very spacious. And if I was buying a hybrid, I would be perfectly happy and content owning that because the drive experience is so seamless. Some hybrids, you still get the power surges or the strange sounds, and the stop-start might be kind of jarring. But in this case, I just think Honda has nailed it in the hybrid world.
Yeah, Honda has this dual motor technology down pretty solid. They're rolling it out globally. I mean, this is you know, we talked about 48 volt. You know, this is this is why Honda doesn't have to do 48 volt, is they have this. And like you said, 37 mpg is what I was getting in a car that doesn't drive like a science experiment. This is one of my favorite hybrids.
And it's not just a dowdy hybrid either. 212 horsepower combined when you put together the motors with the with the gas engine, and the CVT. I'm not a huge fan of CVTs, but I think again Honda does a great job with making the CVT work very smoothly without the surges and without the strange kind of rubber bandy effect. Really enjoyable in the Honda.
And that's the effect of that two-motor hybrid system, and being able to, channel the right power at the right time through the drivetrain to just make everything work together seamlessly, and the thing will even squawk the tires at launch.
Oh, yeah.
So the power's right there at start.
Speaking of squawking the tires, we had also from Hyundai, we had two winners. That's the other automaker that has two winners this year. One is the Hyundai Kona EV, and the other was the Sonata 1.6 liter turbo. But I distinctly recall squawking the tires in the Kona EV as if it had like step gear transmission, even though it's a single speed transmission. When I launched hard, a couple seconds apart were these squawking of the tires. Very interesting. But anyway, this is a return winner, the Kona EV, 5 passengers, maximum speed of 104 miles per hour. You can fast charge the thing in 54 minutes. The range is 258 miles. And, when you achieve a number like that after plugging in, you've suddenly mitigated a lot of range anxiety, right?
Yeah, and that's actually what happened to me. I had a long drive the following day, and so I had plugged in ours in my garage outlet overnight, and came out the next morning with it showing 285 miles of range, which actually didn't just disappear either.
So not 258, but 285.
285, yeah.
You're not dyslexic, right? You didn't,
No, right, yeah.
You didn't see the numbers just in.
I got pictures. I took pictures.
Yeah, I think to the Kona, and we had others and other full EVs in the competition this year. It's just the public really needs to get out, and the industry needs to get some sort of experiential campaign going where people can experience driving an electric vehicle, because it's like nothing else, and it's so enjoyable.
It is. And it's also a nice package. I mean, it's a compact CUV. It's the sort of vehicle everybody's kind of gravitating to, whether they're buying gas or,
And I think, James, both of us would love to get this and a Bolt out on a rally, a cone course, and have some fun.
I have actually taken the Bolt, which was in the competition this year as a returning winner. I have had that on the rally course. It's quite fun. It's quite fun.
Yeah. Lot of low end torque.
So the Chevy Bolt was in the hunt as well. Did well in our testing. And this year the Chevy Bolt has an extra 20 or 21 miles of range.
20, yeah.
By altering the chemistry, the battery chemistry. They made some changes to maximize the range. It was a great effort. We enjoyed driving it, but we still think the Hyundai Kona is slightly better.
Yeah, and like you're saying, automakers continue to innovate. This is new technology. Basically, it's new technology, and they continue to innovate, continue to drive costs down, make these more affordable, longer range vehicles more practical for everyday people.
So let's move on to the second Hyundai trophy, and that was for the 1.6 liter turbocharged 4-cylinder with direct injection in the Sonata. And this is an all-new Sonata. Again, spacious, good-sized vehicle, kind of like the Honda Accord. But you think of an engine that small, 1.6 liter. You used to think, oh, that must be a real dog. But I tell you, this turbocharged gem is just everything that you could need in a vehicle. And of course, all sorts of it's 180 horsepower, 195 pound-feet of torque, and it's always there all the time. You know, if you need to merge into traffic on the highway, I mean, it's quiet at idle. Everything is just the way it's everything that you want in an engine, but with the fuel efficiency. You know, when you're able to get, we had upper 30s, as high as 37 miles per gallon in a vehicle the size of the Sonata without any electrification attached. Impressive.
A lot of advanced technology.
Yeah, the little engine that could, huh?
Yeah.
That's what I took away from it was lots of punch when you need it, and great refinement.
Yeah.
I was very intrigued by this engine being so small, and so I wanted to get in it and spend some time, and I took it on a long drive up into northern Michigan, all kinds of different roads, you know, passing, and it felt like a V6 the whole way.
Yeah.
I would
Did you have
put
much
it up
weight in
against.
the car at the time?
2 passengers are stuff, not a ton, but you know, but you know, always ready to run, regardless of speed.
So it's worth noting that Hyundai had 6 entries in this year's competition, more than any other automaker. And 3 of those entries were absolute clean sheet internal combustion engines. We don't see that from a lot of automakers. To have one clean sheet engine is significant. But in this case, Hyundai is launching this whole new 3rd generation engine family that they're calling Smart Stream, or that's how they're marketing these engines. So in this case, it's a 1.6 turbo. There's also a 1.6 naturally aspirated that we drove in the Accent subcompact. And then there's a larger 2.5 liter naturally aspirated that we also drove in the Sonata. All of them very capable engines. We thought the 1.6 turbo stood head and shoulders. But technology, very interesting technologies, especially this continuously variable valve duration system, which is the first time we've seen in a production vehicle, and they've explained it to me. I've seen the working of this camshaft actuator, and without getting too bogged down in details, it's changing the rotation speed of the camshaft lobes. So the lobes are rotating independently of the shaft itself, which is affecting then how long the intake valve, only the intake valves, how long they're staying open. And it's happening at every single valve, at every intake stroke. It's pretty remarkable. It kind of reminds me of the GM DFM system, where it's, you know, cylinder by cylinder, it's deciding which cylinder to shut down. But it's just fascinating, and it works really well. I mean, clearly the numbers are there. We didn't experience any strange sounds or any hiccups at all.
And I mean, just to recap, Hyundai believes in internal combustion engines, and they continue to innovate in a space where not as many development dollars are going in at other automakers.
Right.
And this is the kind of thing that you find. So.
Yep. So our next engine on the list, the Mercedes-Benz GLE 450. This is what used to be the M class. So good size SUV that comes in 5-passenger or 7-passenger version. I think we tested the 5-passenger. But this is an all-new, again, clean sheet, 3-liter turbocharged inline-6 engine. Their code name is M256. But Mercedes used to do inline-6s long time ago, and then they migrated to V6s like a lot of other automakers did. But now they've come back with this, and I see it as very competitive with the BMW engine. Two great German inline-6 turbos in the luxury segment this year.
Yeah, it's a perfect engine in terms of balance and vibration and whatnot, and we loved them for a long time. But now, with the advance of electrification, now they'll be able to make them fit under the hood better, which was the main reason they got phased out, because they were too tall, too long, and now they're able to add 48-volt systems that get rid of the alternator and shorten up the engine block, and do some other things that they can use one turbocharger instead of two, and all sorts of things that make them fit in the engine bay easier. And wow, we're going to see more inline engines.
And so this is an advantage over the BMW engine. This Mercedes engine does have 48 volt. The BMW engine did not.
Oh, okay. Well,
in that sense.
all right, yeah.
But yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's great that they can pair 48 volt with such a fine engine. The stop start was really smooth. James, I know you're very sensitive to. I think you've described some of the systems as agricultural.
Yeah, an international
Farm
harvester.
implement.
Yeah, I just
Not this one.
No, not at all. And one of the little nuances that I like about it is as a beltless engine, you press the start button and the engine springs to life. Like, okay, let's go. And it's a really neat feature of 48 volt technology. Stop start, very smooth. 362 horsepower in this. It sure seems like a lot more.
Yeah, but know that this engine is going to roll out into almost everything. I mean, it actually did come a year earlier
Right, yeah.
in the CLS and the E-Class,
a whole lot more
which were out of our price category to test.
Yes.
But in this case, this fit under the price cap, and so we get a chance to take a look at this engine. Know that we will see this in any number of Mercedes coming down the road, as well as some, four-cylinder 48-volt versions. So, all of that smoothness and power is there, and the difference at some of the higher levels with the AMG versions is they are able to power a 48-volt electric compressor turbocharger to augment the power, but beyond that, this is just an amazing system, an amazing propulsion system.
Yep. All right, so our last engine on the list, and again, this is not a ranking of 1 to 10. All 10 of them are equal. We're going in alphabetical order. The Nissan Altima with a 2-liter VC turbo. This is the variable compression engine. This is a carryover winner from last year when we tested it in the Infiniti QX50, which is a larger SUV. In this case now, a smaller Nissan that got 5 miles per gallon better in our testing. We got 31 miles per gallon. A bunch of us topped 31 miles per gallon in our testing. Last year, I recall in the QX50, it was in mid to upper 20s. So impressive to see this. We want to recognize this sort of technology in our competition, and we were blown away last year with the very sophisticated crankshaft attached to an actuator that shifts and is actually changing the stroke in the so that the combustion chamber is changing size. The stroke is actually changing, so the compression ratio is 14 to 1 in high efficiency mode, or when you're hard on the gas, it's then 8 to 1. It's then 8 to 1 for the high power mode. It's just fascinating, and you never really experience any hiccups or you don't sense when it's switching. It's just very seamless.
I mean, I just continue to say, people don't, when you're driving this vehicle, you have no sense that it's changing these compression ratios other than the gauge on the dash telling you. But when you consider what's going on inside this engine at speed, at 5,000 RPM.
It's astounding.
It's amazing, and it works, and it does produce some fuel economy gain. But where it really shines is it just produces amazing power from this small engine.
Yep. And a fine CVT, and also employing both port injection and direct injection, something that we're seeing in a number of vehicles. So yeah, just really impressed with that, and we look forward to more applications of the VC turbo.
Yeah, and so with everybody talking about, the ICE engine is dying and everything else, here's an example, just some totally new technology that is coming out and certainly providing some experiences for consumers they're really going to like.
And it doesn't require electrification, but as
Yeah.
I understand, this technology is compatible with electrification.
Right,
too.
they're
If
developing, they're
didn't want to
working
do a
on it.
hybrid version of it with this engine,
Right.
it is feasible.
And if to put a bow on it, looking back at the notes, James captured it perfectly, and it applies to all 10 of these winners. The engine sells the car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
248 horsepower, 273 pound-feet of torque.
Yeah.
That's if you're using premium fuel. So with that, we're going to wrap up the conversation. Thank you for tuning in. Hope to see you next year when we talk about the 2021 list of the award's 10 best engines and propulsion systems. Thanks.